We've officially gotten to the end. All offseason, I've been ranking the top 100 quarterbacks in college football entering the 2023 campaign. With the season kicking off this weekend, it's time to get to my top 15 quarterbacks. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. I'm going to be posting videos every day during the college football season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Kicking off today's top 15 is Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. I debated having him a little lower, but I really do think this is the year that we finally see him break out. His numbers have been pretty underwhelming so far in his career, but he's only appeared in 10 games and he was injured in quite a few of them. He completed 58% of his passes for 2,200 yards and 15 passing touchdowns last season. As I talked about in my Heisman video, I think Quinn Ewers has the potential to be one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. He has the talent surrounding him, so now it's a matter of him just proving himself to the rest of the college football world. Jalen Daniels was a breakout quarterback last season for Kansas. In his third season with the Jayhawks, he threw for 2,000 yards with 18 passing touchdowns. He also added nearly 500 yards on the ground with 7 rushing scores. Those numbers are a little low because he only appeared in 9 games as he missed time due to an injury. Had he played a full season, those numbers really would have been enhanced. It was a breakout season for Kansas last year, and I think he has them on the right track. Dillon Gabriel is still around, as this is going to be his 5th collegiate season. He spent 3 years at UCF before transferring to Oklahoma last year. He had quite the debut season for the Sooners, as he threw for 3,200 yards with 25 passing touchdowns. He also added 300 yards on the ground with 6 rushing scores. Although that would be a solid season for any quarterback, it was actually one of the worst seasons for Dillon Gabriel. During his time at UCF, he was one of the better quarterbacks in the nation, as he was throwing for 3,500 yards and 30 passing touchdowns this season. I think he'll improve on the numbers he had last year with Oklahoma and go back to the stats that he was posting while he was at UCF. Frank Harris is back at UTSA for one final go at it. He's been fantastic for the Roadrunners the last couple of years, as he's thrown for over 7,200 yards with 60 passing touchdowns just the last 2 seasons. He's also been a threat on the ground, as he's added 1,200 yards with 15 rushing scores as well. Frank Harris has proved that he's one of the better group of 5 quarterbacks over the last couple of years, and I don't think that's going to change in 2023. If anything, I think he's primed to post even better numbers than he did last year, and that was a pretty solid season. He threw for over 4,000 yards with 32 passing touchdowns while adding 600 yards on the ground with 9 rushing scores as well. KJ Jefferson is back for his 5th season at Arkansas. He's been the starting quarterback the last 2 seasons, where he's racked up a total of 24 starts. During those last 2 seasons, he's thrown for nearly 5,500 yards with 45 passing touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. He's also added over 1,200 yards on the ground with 15 rushing scores as well. His last 2 seasons have nearly been identical. In 2021, he threw for 2,676 yards, while last year he threw for 2,636. Last year he threw 24 passing touchdowns, while the year before he had 21 passing touchdowns. In 2021, he had 664 rushing yards, and last year he had 640 rushing yards. So if I were to guess, he'll be right around that mark, but I got a feeling KJ Jefferson is going to end his career on a high note. In his first season as the starting quarterback for Western Kentucky, Austin Reed made quite the impression. He completed 65% of his passes while throwing for 4,700 yards and 40 passing touchdowns. He also had 8 rushing scores as well. Reed led the entire country in passing yards and was 3rd in the entire country in passing touchdowns. Overall, he was 2nd in the country in total touchdowns responsible for with 49, and he was 2nd in the country in total yards, having just under 5,000. It does seem a little disrespectful to have him this low, and I'll probably regret it, as I expect him to have another insane season for Western Kentucky this year. JJ McCarthy is back for his 2nd season as Michigan's starting quarterback. He had a pretty good debut year for them last year, as he completed 65% of his passes, throwing for 2,700 yards with 22 passing touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. He also added 300 yards on the ground with 5 rushing scores as well. The numbers aren't as impressive as other quarterbacks on this list, but that's because McCarthy gets the job done in Michigan by winning games. Grayson McCall is back for his 5th season at Coastal Carolina. It looked like he'd be transferring this offseason, but he opted to return to the Chanticleers for 1 more year. McCall has been one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football since the start of the 2020 season. During his time with the Chanticleers, he's thrown for over 8,000 yards with 78 passing touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. He's also rushed for over 1,000 yards with 17 rushing scores as well. If Grayson McCall has yet another fantastic season in 2023, well, he'll have quite the stretch for him. He's won the Sun Belt Player of the Year in 2020, 2021, and 2022, so if he wins it this year, that'll give him his 4th straight award. Jayden Daniels returns to LSU for his 2nd season. After spending 3 years at Arizona State, Jayden Daniels really emerged as one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football last season. He completed 69% of his passes for 2,900 yards with 17 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. He also had 900 yards on the ground with 11 rushing scores as well. I talked about this when he was at Arizona State, but Jayden Daniels is a really good quarterback, and I'm glad that college football fans finally got to see how good he is last season. Jordan Travis has been taking snaps in college football since all the way back in 2018, but he finally had his breakout campaign in 2022. Last season for the Seminoles, he appeared in 13 games, throwing for over 3,200 yards with 24 passing touchdowns. Obviously, those were both career highs for him. He also did a lot of damage on the ground as he rushed for over 400 yards with 7 rushing scores. We already knew that Jordan Travis was one of the better rushing quarterbacks in all of college football, as in 2020 and 2021, he rushed for over 1,000 yards with 14 rushing scores. But it was the step forward he took in the passing game last season that really has him as one of the better quarterbacks in the nation now. Speaking of quarterbacks that have been playing since 2018, Sam Hartman is still around. This will be his 6th collegiate season. He spent the first 5 years at Wake Forest, where he put up fantastic numbers. He threw for 13,000 yards with 110 passing touchdowns. He also added 900 yards on the ground with 17 rushing scores as well. He transferred to Notre Dame this offseason, where I've talked about him being probably the best Notre Dame quarterback of the last decade. He already has a game under his belt this year in which he threw for 250 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. I don't know if Sam Hartman's going to be throwing for 4,200 yards again or throwing 40 passing touchdowns, but if he does, that'll really solidify him as one of the best college football quarterbacks of the last 20 years or so. Who would have thought many years ago when I was making fun of Bo Nix that he would eventually be in my top 5 of college football quarterbacks? Well, after the season he had for Oregon last year, he's more than deserved it. He completed 72% of his passes for 3,600 yards with 29 passing touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. He also added 500 yards on the ground with 14 rushing scores as well. As I talked about in my Heisman videos, Bo Nix was one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football last season, but yet he didn't receive any Heisman votes to finish inside the top 10. That should change this year, as Bo Nix is destined for another fantastic season to end his collegiate career. Who would have thought when looking at this list a year ago that Michael Penix would end up in my top 3? He had a pretty decent career while at Indiana, but it wasn't anything too memorable. That was largely due to him getting hurt almost every year. Then he transferred to Washington, where he put up some insane numbers that I don't think anybody saw coming. He completed 65% of his passes last year while throwing for over 4,600 yards with 31 passing touchdowns. Penix led the Pac-12 in passing yards and was number 2 in the entire country. I've talked about him a number of times this offseason as my Heisman sleeper because I think there's a realistic chance that Michael Penix Jr. can throw for over 5,000 yards this year with 40 passing touchdowns. Coming in at number 2 is the consensus number 2 quarterback in the country in Drake May. He had quite the debut season for North Carolina last year, as he really proved he's one of the best in all of college football. He completed 66% of his passes for 4,300 yards with 38 passing touchdowns. He also added 700 yards on the ground with 7 rushing scores as well. Drake May was the only quarterback in all of college football that surpassed 5,000 total yards. He was also number 1 in the country with 700 total plays as well. If you take into account his 45 touchdowns responsible for, he led the ACC and was number 3 in all of college football. To no surprise though, coming in at number 1 as the best quarterback in all of college football is Caleb Williams. We saw what he was able to do at Oklahoma in 2021, but after transferring to USC, he proved he's the best. He completed 66% of his passes while throwing for 4,500 yards with 42 passing touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. He also added 400 yards on the ground with 10 rushing scores. He also kicked off his 2023 campaign this past weekend as he threw for 300 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. Until someone's able to dethrone him, Caleb Williams is going to remain the best quarterback in all of college football throughout the 2023 season. Well, that officially wraps it up for my top 100 quarterbacks entering the 2023 campaign. It was a grind, but we finally made it. Which quarterback did I have too high on my list? And which quarterback did I have too low? Whoever it was, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day all season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.